thanks for taking the time.
Pleasure.
The first question I wanted to ask was about blockchain. Obviously, it's a bit of a buzzword in the industry, but in layman's terms, I was wondering if you could just basically describe what blockchain is and why real estate agents and mortgage brokers in particular need to be aware of it.
Cool. Sort of two answers to that. So the first thing, what is blockchain in its simplest form? If you think about the way the world works at the moment, you sort of have a trusted provider in the middle where you trust them to do and to hold some record for you. So a good example would be a bank. You trust them to own your account and they tell you that this is the balance. And they essentially are the record keeper. If the balance changes, they will tell you that. And if somebody hacked the bank and they changed the balance, you've essentially lost money. So that's the way it works now, and you have different other trusted providers in our economy, like titles providers. They tell you that you own property, and those kind of super funds, all of those. What the blockchain does is it says, take away that trusted provider and distribute it across a network, and the network becomes your trust point. So that means that instead of me having to trust a bank, I can trust the blockchain to keep track of my balance.
So it's quite disruptive, I guess, in that way, potentially.
Yeah, very much so. Because as a result, you don't have, potentially transaction fees and all of the other things you get with banks. You have the ability to run on a network, and then you can start to get innovations. Innovators can come along, can write things like smart contracts, and they can do things like, I will pay somebody if something happens, and everybody can see the contract. So you suddenly get the ability to almost automate transactions in a way that you couldn't do if it was all held by a bank.
Yeah, and I guess there's more visibility as well, sort of like across the...
Very good point.
Yeah.
A lot, very, very easy to see what's going on, very, very easy to track payments, very, very easy to track transfers, and also to tie them together. So you can say the payment of the money and the transfer of the title can happen at the same time on the same blockchain. Which at the moment, as you know, settlement for a property can be a hugely convoluted process.
So why do mortgage brokers and those real estate agents, people in the I guess mortgage and real estate space, why should they be aware of this? Because it does sound quite high tech to a degree, like it's a CIA level discussion. Why should they at least be aware of it?
I think being aware of it is more that things are going to change, not so much that blockchain is going to do the changing, but that people are thinking differently about how we can do these things in the background. And if they're going to change, what does that do for you as a mortgage provider, as a professional, mortgage professional? The reality is what it's going to do for you is it's going to make things easier. The back end is going to be easier. Getting funding, the types of funding you can get, the kind of rates you can find, and even the processes you do, your back office stuff, paperwork and everything, that should get easier over time. So the question for me to mortgage professionals is, what does that do for what you do? And really what it highlights is that people are going to need you more from a service perspective. If you spend more time face-to-face with people, giving them that comfort that everything's under control, especially when you've got something scary like a blockchain, where's my money? It's distributed on a network. It's a lot harder to trust a blockchain than a bank. When you've got that going on in the background, they need that sort of trusted person to work with it. So for me, the change is really making sure you're better at service and making sure you're automating away and making all the stuff that really wastes your time and keeps you away from servicing face-to-face.
Yep. In terms of Australia's position relative to the rest of the world when it comes to technology in financial services, are we digitally savvy, are we up to speed, or are we falling behind?
I think we definitely are. I think if you look at some of our banks, they've really innovated their core systems, and as a result it's much easier for them now to do lots of stuff on the outside, digital mortgages, etc. So I think we're actually very much at the cutting edge. We've got great API driven economy in a ways that we have these APIs which are ways to do stuff quite easily. So CoreLogic, for example, we provide ways to order a valuation or get a valuation for a property. Companies like Equifax, they give you the ability to do credit checks and ID verifications and all of that online, very easy to do those calls. So we've got the framework in place now for rapid innovation, and so I think our fintech world is pretty vibrant. It's the kind of thing that's going on in Stone and Chalk down in Sydney, for example, is a good example of that sort of innovation. And that can only happen because the backbone is there. The banks have done good stuff, and service providers like CoreLogic and Equifax and those kind of companies have done the same. Yeah. So as a result, it's a lot easier to innovate and create really innovative new products.
Just previously you touched on that point of the awareness around with blockchain, for example, and disruptive technologies. And one thing brokers might be fearful of is their business being disrupted, either by people moving online with mortgages, or that middleman component being taken out of the market. But I suppose, like you said, a lot of these technologies are not looking to sort of like poach the customer. It's more about the processes involved. And obviously mortgage broking is very a process-driven activity. But I guess the core value of what a broker does is provide that sort of like trust and engagement with the client. What would be, I guess, your advice to those brokers who see they're seeing technological changes happen in the fin services space? They know that they're part of that area, and they want to, I guess, be on the front foot, or at least move with the changes, and stay profitable and stay relevant. What would they be best place to do?
Best place, so for me, keep abreast of what's going on. If stuff comes out, test it, try it. I like to think of try, measure, learn. You're constantly trying stuff, but keep your core business focus going as well. So almost a 90-10 rule. 90% focus on customer relationships, keeping your customers happy, do the stuff you're good at, make sure you focus on the person-to-person stuff, and then take 10% out and learn about new things. Zip ID comes along and they can do ID verification. Can you test it? Does it work for you? Can you change the way you do business as a result of that? How do you get more efficient? If you look down on a Sunday night, if you sit down and say, this is what I've done in my week, what percentage of that time is back office wasted time, and how can you get better at that? And what's coming up that can make you better, and test that? And what percentage of the time is customer facing? And try and get that customer facing time up, and then try and test ways in which you can get the other stuff automated away. That would be my advice.
Excellent. Good to speak to you, Greg.
No worries, pleasure.